Good day to you. Yeah, we just take it for granted that our cell phone is going to be with us every single minute of the day. And when it's not, when we have those moments when the battery runs out or we can't find it, where is it? We go into a frenzy, into a panic. The cell phone is embedded in our lives today. We just assume that it's there for us and it's going to serve us. But is the cell phone really a good thing? Well, that's what today's chapter is all about. This chapter is taking a very different look at comparing media than our previous chapters have taken a look, because this chapter is diving specifically into mobile technology or cell phone use. And there's really three central points to this chapter, and it's pretty much going to serve as the springboard for what you're doing for your country media post today, because you're going to be looking at cell phone usage in your countries. So these three prongs of this chapter are, as it starts out with what is good about cell phones, a utopian view of cell phones. You know, utopia is that beautiful place that you go to where everything is perfect. And the idea essentially behind the most utopian ideal for cell phones is that they make us free. We're free to do things. One of the most interesting sayings in this chapter to me was it makes those absent present. Makes those absent present. So you can be there whether you're there or not. You can call up a person, you can FaceTime them, you can text them, you can instant message them. You can bring them in so many different ways. And their comments are there for you, whether they're there or not, if you know what I mean. So they can post something on Facebook or post something on Instagram. They can go to sleep, but their comments are still there. So cell phones make us free. Some would argue that without cell phones, democracy itself would be threatened, because it empowers the individual citizen to have a say in government and to vote. And so without the cell phone, without seeking knowledge, without being able to communicate with people one-on-one, democracy is not going to be able to play out in its optimum form. So democracy is said to be the cell phone is said to be absolutely essential for democracy. Also, the cell phone is said to be very central to efficiency. It's a way that we can get things done very quickly and without wasting a lot of effort. So if you want to call somebody on your phone, you don't have to guess what the numbers are. You have only to tap your phone a couple times and away your phone goes. It makes a call. You need to find the nearest gas station. You're almost out of gas. You're on a highway. A couple taps in the Google search bar brings up a map, and all of a sudden you can find the gas station. You want to eat at a restaurant, you're not sure how it is, you can very quickly find reviews of the restaurant. And so efficiency is also said to be one of the redeeming features of cell phones. And pleasure. Pleasure is also said to be a redeeming feature of cell phones that, again, makes us free. Whether it's the pleasure of hearing somebody's voice, or getting something that you've put on a social medium liked or commented upon or shared with somebody else, or finding out that somebody has a crush on you through a text, or looking at pornography, or looking at photographs. They are all examples of pleasure that is derived from the phone. And then lastly, as a benefit for the freedom of cell phones, the chapter talks about the Arab Spring and how some of the fundamental revolutions that could never have taken place in the Arab world, revolutions to overthrow dictatorships where Mubarak, for example, in Egypt, was said to be an authoritarian dictator, and to have those people finally overthrown in the Arab Spring, as it was called, or the Facebook Revolution, it's said to point the finger again to cell phones bringing about some sort of freedom. In this case, an entire revolution that would not have been possible in previous times, because people were not communicating, they were not designing flash mobs, they were not designing points of protest. And so those are all the good things. Those are all the good things about cell phones. But now the book moves into a critique of cell phones, talking about two areas where cell phones are not very good for us. And one is dystopia. It's the opposite of utopia. It's the idea that cell phones are actually making others unfree. Yeah, dystopia, that's what that's trying to describe, a world where it's the opposite of utopia. And the main problem here is that cell phones are used as tools of the state for surveillance, that you're being surveyed all the time. I talk to people who mention things and Alexa's in the room, and next thing you know, they're getting links to products that they were just talking about, kayaking or whatever, and they get a message about kayaking just from Alexa being in the room. And the same is true for our cell phones with those IP addresses that are being recorded every time you're using your phone. You're leaving a trail wherever you go. I mean, your whereabouts are known right now if you have a cell phone that's on, because you're being surveyed. And you're being surveyed by the state, as the government. The government is making sure that it has access to data on you through Facebook and through Verizon and through all the other means that it could get information on you if you really had to very quickly. You're being surveyed. Whether you're being studied, that's another question, but you're being surveyed through all the security cameras, all the ATM machines that you use. Every time you use your laptop, you're being surveyed, not just by government, but also by corporate management. And that's where people are being mined for purchases all day long. The big corporations, the Facebooks, the Googles, and the IBMs, and the Verizons, and the Geicos, and the McDonald's, and all the big companies, they are into your pockets because they're into your cell phone. They're surveilling you, and they're monitoring your behavior so that they can try and leverage that into future purchases. The book refers to this kind of society that's emerged as a giant one-way mirror society, where we can't really see what's on the other side, right? You can't see Verizon. It's like a glass mirror. It's like being in an interrogation room in a police station. But they can see us. They can see into us. They know exactly what websites you visited. They know exactly what purchases you've made online. They even sometimes know what you're thinking about doing before you do. That's, when you go to book an airline ticket, you keep looking at airline flights and the price starts creeping up. And that's because the cookies from your computer are telling the airline that you're really interested. And so the airline knows they can inch up the price a couple dollars. That's an old trick for booking airline tickets. You have to clear your cookies if you want to get the best price. So this one-way mirror society is part of this dystopia that we have. And furthermore, the phone creates the social stresses that then fuel consumer needs. We start to get uptight about our phone. Oh, we need a new charger. Oh, it's not the charger's not long enough, so I want a charger. Oh, no, I want a charger that charges faster. Oh, no, I need something. Now I'm stressed out about my phone in my car. I need something that's going to hold the phone so that when I drive, I can see the map. And I'm afraid of losing my phone, so I need something that's like a big lanyard that I can put my phone in a case. And I need a case because I don't want the phone to crack, and I don't want the screen to get scratched, so I need insurance. And all these stresses that are caused by the phone, it results in further consumer behavior. And the companies are not exactly looking for our best interests. AT&T was talked about in the chapter as being fined for a variety of infractions, environmentalism and divulging private information. Those are two very different things, environmental crimes and human crimes, if you want to look at it that way. And the book even talks about sex workers as being slaves to their phones, and it's just a whole dystopia that this chapter discusses in the middle portion. And then we come to the final portion of the chapter, again extending another argument that says that cell phones are not utopian for us in the way that they are interfering in our lives. It has to do with the materiality question. The materials that cell phones are made from and how that impacts the environment. And you have only to read the first chapter in this section. You read about all those horrific chemicals, which lead, mercury, chromium. You just know that those are not good when consumed by people. And so here we're using phones, and those materials have to come from somewhere. And a country like Congo, really poor country, has a lot of the elements that are used to make cell phones. And so it's kind of like Mexico in the last century, mined for silver. Congo is mined for all these components that are going into cell phones. And then what do we do with them when we're done? We dump them. And when they have batteries in them, and batteries are horrific for the environment. There's acid in there. And so we dump these cell phones. They sit in landfills. The plastic starts to break down. The synthetic materials that are in there don't break down very fast. I mean, plastic does not break down. It takes hundreds of years to break down. Meanwhile, all these chemicals in all the circuitry in the cell phones are leaching out into landfills. That's what we're doing. How many cell phones have you had in your life? How many have you thrown away? Just think about that. Think about the impact on the earth. And also there's the idea that cell phones have fueled energy consumption. We're trying to reduce our energy use on this planet because it takes fossil fuels to make energy. An electrical plant runs on gas, propane, can run on steam. Some are nuclear powered, but energy has to be created, and that sucks up energy to create energy. So cell phones are just contributing to that. All the battery usage, all the wireless usage, all the playing back of YouTube videos, you're using a lot of electricity. And then there's a whole problem of towers and the radiation that they cause. So those cell phone towers, we have a tower for WESS radio, and it's on the roof of the Lenape residence hall. And every time a person goes up there, we have to cut back our power because of the radiation. That's an FCC regulation. We have to cut back that power. The same is true for cell phone use. There's a lot of radiation going on, and it's regulated by the federal government. So many parts per million or whatever, but who really knows? I mean, we don't really know. We haven't had a long enough time to study the effects of radiation from cell phone towers on human beings. And then we have a lot of these studies that are being conducted to study the effect of radiation and other harms caused by cell phones, but a lot of these studies are paid for by corporations. They're the ones who can afford to do these big studies. And so Verizon will do a self-study. Do you think it's going to find that it has a problem with radiation and cancer in the self-paid for Verizon study? I mean, it's just it's a problem in the imbalance and the inequity. With a cell phone was supposed to bring equilibrium to the markets. Everybody could buy, sell. You could go to Overstock and get something. You can create something and sell it. It's supposed to equalize the market. But when we discuss how corporations are able to pony up the money and conduct studies that prove that their own products are not dangerous, and it's an unfair playing field. And then there's a whole problem with car accidents, texting and car accidents, and looking, posting while you're driving. So many car accidents are taking place because people take their eyes off the road for just that 1 to 2 seconds, and bang, they're into somebody else's bumper or worse. So, the chapter ends on a fairly dour assessment of cell phone use, but it is important when you perform criticism, as we are doing in media, and you're looking at the cell phone as a medium, that you are able to go to town in a way and really scathingly expose some of these forces that are fairly strongly entrenched in your lives, because otherwise you don't have that awakening. Even if it leaves you with a hollow feeling, the cell phone is doing all this to me. It's absolutely essential for a critical, self-reflective understanding. So on that note, have a great day.